the Chinese own the LME, which is the London Metals Exchange, different from the LBMA, and that's the base metals that you need to build an infrastructure. They own that. That's a step, certainly, that people focus on gold and silver, but they're doing it in all commodities. And when we talk about the LBMA, largely the Chinese have involved themselves in what's called exchange for physical. And usually that ends up in buying COMEX contracts and delivering them in London. But what we've seen recently is a huge amount of kilobars, I think it's called the mini contract on COMEX, that have been delivered to the Brinks facility in Hong Kong. And there is a COMEX Brinks facility that is largely only delivered into when it is exchanged for physical. And the author who talked about this very eloquently said what is happening is that they short the price of metal, they buy the physical for delivery off of COMEX into Hong Kong, COMEX Brinks facility, and then truck it to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, where it is then sold, to this mass exodus out of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, where they're delivering many times what the COMEX market does every day. And this is how countries are sidestepping sanctions. Like Iran will sell their oil to China for yuan, which is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And for all we know, it's the kilo bars that left the COMEX that were delivered to the COMEX approved depository in Hong Kong, then trucked to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and then sold to Iran as they cash in their yuan that they use to, buy oil with or sell their oil with. And this is exactly this slow process of bleeding down the exchanges. And absolutely, when you look at the LBMA, they have the lowest level of silver that they've had maybe ever in the 140-year history of the mint that isn't already encumbered, belonging to ETFs and belonging to other entities. And when you realize that Gordon Brown sold the majority of all of their gold, there's no wonder that they're saying, we'll buy it back, even if we didn't produce it. That reeks of desperation.
In a recent discussion, Andy Schectman sheds light on China's strategic moves in the metals market, emphasizing their aggressive acquisition of commodities beyond gold and silver. Notably, they've taken ownership of the London Metals Exchange, LME, and are actively engaging in exchange for physical transactions, predominantly funneling COMEX contracts to Hong Kong before transferring them to the Shanghai Gold Exchange. This maneuvering is not just about commodities, it's a geopolitical chess move, allowing countries like Iran to sidestep sanctions by converting yuan from oil sales into gold.
And, so again, I don't know how much time is left in all of this. I don't know when we're going to see the big move in gold and silver that we've all been anticipating, but certainly you can see it all around us in terms of geopolitical events, political events, moral, social. And then you see a mint like this saying, we'll take anything you want to sell, even if we didn't sell it to you. And we never did this before, but we'll do it now. It just tells me that the hour is drawing nearer before we see some sort of gold revaluation. And, you keep hearing that gold revaluation. Well, look, it's ironic that the central banks hold gold in their central bank accounts in an account called the gold revaluation account. You look at their balance sheet, that's what it says, the gold revaluation account. Roosevelt did it. He confiscated gold, which I don't see them doing this time because everyone owned gold back then, not now. It was currency back then. But then he devalued the dollar by 40%, making gold, go up 40%. And you got the head of the Dutch National Bank saying the same thing. This is what we should do. And a lot of people saying this is what we will do. We will just revalue the price of gold, and that will get our balance sheet in order. One that is continually denigrating by the day to the tune of, $100,000 a second that we are adding in debt to $1 trillion every 100 days. And yet we continue to borrow money and give it to other countries like the Ukraine, $60 billion, and chastise and, call names to our congressmen and women who would have the audacity to question the sanity of maybe just putting America first once. And I think this is, you put it all together, you start to see just what it is that I'm talking about. And, I hate to be this pessimistic about things, but yet the lunacy continues. And, no more so than what we saw in the Jared Bernstein interview. I hope everyone checks it out if they haven't seen it by now. But there is lunacy all around us, and most of the people watching this show probably would have a better idea of how to run the government's finances on a big picture than the people that we are putting in charge. And this is starting to have consequences around the globe, not just in the United States.
Andy Schectman continues to dissect geopolitical shifts, this time focusing on Turkey's evolving relationship with the West and its potential move towards the BRICS alliance. With Turkey's dissatisfaction with NATO and the European Union, Schectman highlights a growing trend of countries reassessing their alliances amidst perceived unfriendly behavior from the United States. He emphasizes the strategic maneuvers of nations like Turkey and Saudi Arabia, suggesting a cautious approach in navigating international relations.
They applied to the European Union. They are a NATO member, right? And which I find a little surprising, but they applied to the European Union and they were said no. They have, to my understanding, formally applied to the BRICS. And there was a report that just came out by a man, interesting. His name, he's the head of the Turkish Patriotic Party. And his last name is Pirnacek. And he says he believes that with each year, the Turkish people are moving further away from Western values and that the politicians that represent them. This is largely due to the position of the United States, which regularly demonstrates unfriendly and even aggressive behavior in the region and in regard to Turkey as well. He says ordinary people see it, our armed forces see it, and Turkey is America's main target. He says as he shows a map of the country in which U.S. military bases are all around Turkey are marked with U.S. flags. What I'm simply saying is there has been a push, I think, for Turkey to join the BRICS, to question its relationship with NATO. And in fact, this man says we are in danger because of our NATO membership. And I think what you will see, people talk about the BRICS, but you look at these countries that are all being sanctioned, and it's almost as if there's a pushback of the countries, Turkey, Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, and an author I read called it the TRICS instead of the BRICS. And he says, an alliance of the economies sanctioned by the U.S. getting even closer economically and military, and the Eurasian alliance of the sanctioned is forcing the friends of the U.S. to play pragmatically. Well, Turkey is no different. So I guess all I'm simply saying is when you start to see countries that were once Western friendly sound the alarm, like Saudi Arabia. Now, I want to mention one other thing, and I know you didn't ask me about Saudi Arabia, but there's been talk of Saudi Arabia potentially signing a military agreement with the United States for protection. I don't think it will happen, and if it does happen, all they are trying to do is play both sides. In it, their demands are for civilian nuclear technology, how to build a nuclear reactor, if you will, for energy. They are also asking for very, very high-tech weapons that the United States doesn't normally sell to other countries. And, of course, they're telling the only way that this happens is if Israel will negotiate a two-state deal with Palestine. And, all I'm simply saying is that there is a lot of talking out of both sides of the mouth. And I think that when people say, well, Turkey is a NATO member, yeah, Turkey is very upset with the West and they're upset with the European Union. I don't think that they view the United States as the ally we once were, and they've applied to BRICS. And Saudi Arabia is no different. Saudi Arabia realizes that, this is something you have to tread lightly on, but they're playing both sides and making demands that would only, I think, hurt the West more than it would benefit them to maintain this relationship, a temporary one at best. And the same thing is true about many of the other countries, like the United Arab Emirates, who says we don't want dollars for oil anymore, yet they are still not adversarial with the West, but moving more and more in that direction. So these are the little by little by little thing that we see. There'll be a lot of misinformation out there. There'll be a lot of double talk. Just understand that these countries understand the United States is not to be taken lightly, yet they're not to be trusted either. And I think this will be something that will surprise a lot of the the dollar bulls and the people who suffer from recency bias and normalcy bias. These countries are shrewd and they're smart and they're getting all of their ducks in the row while not alienating themselves to the U.S. just yet. There will come a time when sides will be drawn and chosen, but I don't look for this Saudi Arabian pact to sign. And if it does, it will only benefit the Saudis to the detriment of the West. And the same thing is true here with Turkey. More and more of these countries understand that the West is not to be trusted any longer. And this is something that has to be done slowly, methodically, and correctly, not to jump too quickly. But I think we'll see more and more stories like this, including maybe even of South Korea, countries that are our allies that are beginning to grow tired of the way that the West handles their affairs and the way that they use coercion and suppression instead of cooperation to achieve their goals.
Today's discussion provided invaluable insights into the evolving dynamics of global finance and geopolitics. From China's strategic acquisitions in the metals market to Turkey and Saudi Arabia's recalibration of alliances, we've witnessed a complex web of maneuvers with far-reaching implications. It's clear that the traditional balance of power is shifting, prompting countries to reassess their positions and allegiances. We hope you found today's analysis enlightening. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below.